I just had some dinner and I was sitting out here on the back deck enjoying the sunshine. Feels so good. It just feels wonderful. I could make me a pallet out here and lay down and take a nap probably. Matt's out in the back working on something. But I had my reference book with me, one of my reference books, the Dictionary of Southern Appalachian English, and I was looking through it and for something, but then I've noticed this before, but I noticed it again, is the word make. So many entries for the word make in the dictionary. I think almost up to 20. And I did a video a good long while back. I can link to it. But with me and Corey, and I said I was schooling Corey about how many different ways we use the word take. Funny, it rhymes with make. Anyway, but I was thinking about that, and I thought, well, Corey's not here, so I can't do that with her on this one, but I could share with you. There's so many interesting ones. And a lot of these may be common where you live too. I just love thinking about language and accents and phrases and words and the way that they're used. It's funny when I talk about language from the mountains of Appalachia, I'll have people that say, I've lived there all my life and I've never heard any of those, you know, and then there'll be people from California, Idaho, somewhere like that, Arizona, that says, oh, we use those exact same things. Well, that's even, you know, really even makes it more fascinating to think about those differences. Now, a lot of these old usages, why they made the dictionary, do hang on. The first edition of this dictionary was the Smoky Mountains, Dictionary of Smoky Mountain English, which is the southern mountains of Appalachia definitely include the Smoky Mountains, so kind of the area was just expanded to include those areas like where I live that are not part of the Smoky Mountains but are very close. Anyway, definitely there was enough research in the usages and that they were different, notable, I guess you would say, that they made a dictionary. Michael Montgomery, my wonderful dear man, I'm so glad that he did that. He's no longer with us. Anyway, to tell you all that, but then I want to share the entries for make with you. So the first one says to study for, become, train to be. So that one is really common where I live, especially with older folks, but maybe you see someone at church or run into somebody in the grocery store that you've not seen in a long time, and you might say, oh, you know, I remember your grandson. I guess he's all grown up now. And they might say, yeah, he made a doctor or he made a lawyer. It's a way of saying what he become, what career path he chose. The dictionary gives us, we'll start with 1939 Hall Collection, Cataloochee, North Carolina. Only one of his grandsons made a preacher, the Reverend R.B. Caldwell. So that's interesting. Let's see if we can go all the way to the last one. We'll go to 2012, Jordan Medicine Men. Because of my experience in the war, I wondered if there was any way I could ever make a doctor. So those fit perfectly with how I was explaining it. The next little usage of make that the dictionary shares is of a person or animal to mature into or become. So 1942, but the old man liked Jack, and he give Jack a calf, and the calf growed up and made a fine big black bull. So it's still just using it basically in the same way, instead of like thinking about training to become, to make a doctor or a lawyer, just to become, I guess, is the difference there. 1976, Lindsay Grassy Balds. I growed up by that time and made a young man. So even talking about himself, he made a young man. The next version of it, for number 3, is to raise or produce a crop, bring a crop to maturity. And that's another one that's very, very common, just like the first two that I shared with you. So last year, me and Matt, our Tommy toes made like they had never made before. I mean, we just had so many Tommy toes. It was just amazing, amazing. They did so good. You might have somebody say, I planted a big stand of corn, but it didn't make. It didn't make. I don't know what happened to it. Or maybe it did make, and the raccoons or the coons or the deer or something got it. So let's see what it says. 1858. That was in Harris High Times. He pulled fodder for me last week and were a cussin' and a cavortin' around yesterday at the steel house, order making a first-rate crap. Making first-rate crap. Okay, let's see if we can find one that's not got that language, not got the dialect so strong. Let's see. 1974, I'll make a good crop of corn. I hope me and Matt make a good crop of corn this year. We're going to have to get on it though, because we've at the day that I'm actually videoing this, you may not see it till later. Maybe by then I will have we'll have already had the garden turned over, and our first step is of course having the trees cut. But 1975, Great Smoky Mountain National Park, everybody that made a good cane patch put up enough syrup of every kind to do them from one year till the next. So that one again, really, really common. And then it tells us that it can also be used as an intransitive verb of a crop, unborn child, etc., to develop, grow, mature. So an example is the wheat will make a good crop. 1940, Hans Hawks Dunn. She said she was going to be careful while her baby was making. 1940, Still River of Earth. Ah, God, this land'll make, he said. It's rich as sin. If you've never read that book, that's one that'll really make you mad and pull at your heartstrings, but it's also very beautiful. Some dial, North Carolina, just means to develop. They were saying, that book said it just developed. The leaves were just making. 1973, gardening. Onions do better to put them out in March and under a dark moon, for they make under the ground. And then we'll go all the way to 2002. Reed's Hall Top. By late summer, Grandma had dill pickles, sulfured apples, pickled beans and beets, and sauerkraut making in barrels and stoneware crocks. So that's another thing. You'll often hear people that make kraut, ferment things, pickled beans and corn. Here in my area, they'll say, my kraut's making out on the porch. Sometimes you'll hear my kraut's working out on the porch or wherever they've got it. So that's just another usage. And then the last usage, just for that word make, that they share is to distill liquor, hence verbal noun, making. So 1953, Hall Collection, Cocke County, Tennessee. We'd made about 16 months when we found the revenuers were coming. We just run our beer all off. We left our flake stand sitting there. They knocked the flake stand down. Next day we went back and made for 16 months longer. And then 1989, Landry, Smoky Mountain Interviews. She headed up the mountain where they was a-making. So they're just saying, I guess that's almost like a shortened term, instead of having to say making moonshine or liquor, blockade whiskey or whatever you want to call it. They're just saying making, just shorten it to that. You know, Daddy and whoever's out there making in the woods, meaning they've got a still. Now starts all the pages where make is used, make or made is used, different tense for it, but is used in conjunction with another word or words to form phrases. Some of these are really interesting, and I've not heard all of them. But make a beginning is a verb phrase to say a prayer at the beginning of a meal. That's very sweet, but I've never ever heard that. Make a branch. I've not heard that, but I've heard make water. Pap would say that if you needed to make water, that means you had to pee, you had to urinate. Make a branch is to urinate, it tells us. The dictionary does. 1952, Wilson, folk speech, branch to make a, to urinate. And then Wilson Collection, 1960, a small child's word, to urinate. So I've never heard make a branch, but I have heard make water, I think I've even heard a doctor ask Pap that before, an older doctor, can you make water, you know, like is your kidneys working? Make a long arm. I like this one, but I've never heard it. Make a long arm is a verb phrase to reach for food at the meal table. 1962, Williams, Mountains, Mind, Manners. Make a long arm and help yourself. I like that a lot. Make at, to thrust a weapon or attack. 2002, Beach Mountain Tales. They flew mad and began to make at him with a sword. Make at. Not heard that one either. Make do. Now I've heard this one as far as make and do, like you're just, you know, you don't have what you need and you're just making do with what you've got. But this is saying, this is a different usage, is excitement, enthusiastic outburst. So I've never heard that. I guess that's like make a big, we might say make a big to-do about it, but not make do. Another one is make down, is a verb phrase to fashion a temporary bed or pallet on the floor for sleeping. See also made down bed. I've never heard that. I've heard certainly a pallet on the floor, but not the make down part. 1913, Combs, Kentucky Highlander. The mountaineer will send one of his family to a neighbor's to sleep or make down a bed in order to give you room. That's real hospitality there. I've never heard that one though. Make for is to fashion or employ something as. So the Great Smoky Mountain National Park says you could play out in the hallway there where they'd waxed it, you know. We'd make that for a slide. Take a run and go and just slide all the way down to the hall and then up again. So to fashion or employ. Interesting. And then to aim or direct one's course toward. I've heard that. When school was out, most of the boys and the girls made for the bridge with a whoop and a holler. So I might say, after work, I made for home as fast as I could because I was anxious to get home. So make in one's mind, to determine, decide. I've not really heard that one, but it seems really familiar somehow. 1939 Hall Collection, Gumstand, Tennessee. He said he made it in his mind to never surrender, and that was a reference to a Civil War soldier, it says. Make like is to pretend. I've heard that one. Make like you're sick or something. Or Granny used to tell this story about Steve that he would, my older brother, he'd tell Granny, he said, Granny, make like I broke my arm while Daddy's at work, and so he'd get her to like put his arm in a sling, and then he'd try to fool Pap when he got home and tell him that he'd broke his arm while he's at work. I think that's really a sweet story. So make like, to pretend or act as if. 1994, McCarthy, Jack took 2 worlds. Directly he went to sleep or made like he was going to sleep. He wasn't really sleeping. Make no never mind. I don't know if you've heard that one before, but I certainly have. Make on is to work on, as Hans Hawks done. Where was the quilt you were making on? To fare, manage, get by. Thomas Trapson Woman. Poor little Ellen Vinton. How's she making on these days? I don't know. That sounds kind of familiar, but I think I would just say how they making it or how they getting on. I guess though if I'd say how they making it, that's kind of the same. Make one's acknowledgement. I thought this one was really interesting. Is to admit wrongdoing and ask forgiveness before a church congregation. 1800 Globe Creek, church minutes. 8 brother Richard Green came forward and made his acknowledgement concerning what he said in our last meeting. So I guess he'd said something that wasn't what everyone wanted to hear, and then he was coming back to make his acknowledgement and basically apologize. 1976, Thompson touching home to ask forgiveness. He should come to church and make his acknowledgments. I've not heard it phrased like that. I have heard of people being churched, like churched. Means they did something that the church disapproved of. This is mostly in old days. I don't know any churches today in my area that still do this. But and then they would have to come back before the church and kind of apologize and I guess make their acknowledgement, even though I didn't know that's what it was. Make one's brags, verb phrase, to boast, make claims. 1924, Greer Petrie, Angeline gets Eiffel. I heard her making her brags because she'd lost 10 pounds in the last month. We'll go all the way to 2005. Williams, gratitude, to go around bragging about what all you're doing or think you can do. I've not heard make one's brags, but reminds me of, we would say braggity or biggity. If somebody's acting biggity, they're actually just acting like they're better than someone else, everyone else. And then braggity would be that they are bragging about whatever they're doing. Make out is the next one. Of course, when I hear make out, the first thing might goes to mind is what Papa would call he-in and she-in. But it says a verb phrase of a person to manage, get by, find a way, or work out. 1824. Although he had an excellent tract of land, he could hardly make out to live. That makes sense. And then the second part of that one is to plan or determine. So Montgomery Collection, I made out to go to the market, but my wagon broke down. That was Cardwell. And then number 3 of that one is also make out like, to pretend, act as if. That's kind of like the one that we already read there. Make out like, and the other one was make out like, and make like. Very, very familiar. And that one goes on to be number 4 of make out, is to portray or characterize a person. They all made him out the liar, but I believe he was telling the truth. Now that one's very common. See, that's one I hadn't thought about, but we would say that too. They made him out to be the bad guy, and he was not. They made him out or made her out to be the villain, and she was not. She was, or they made her out to be the saint, and she was the sinner. I don't know. Let's see, it goes on to 5, made out to eat a meal. Melton, upon my honor, make out your dinner, boy, he said, for we've got some mighty hard work ahead of us this evening. And it goes on to number 6, is make out, is to assemble, collect. The church makes out some money for the association. It goes on to number 7, to suffice for or supplement, make out. That kind of makes sense. During this time of the year, the branch lettuce, ramps, and other esculent greens from the forest help to make out a meal. Boy, that sounds like a feast. This is the time of the year for that too. And then one last one, a pretense, that ain't nothing but a make out, which is kind of like, let's make out like. You can see why it would be used like that. The next one is make over. Make over is a verb phrase, to praise, compliment, pet, fuss over, brag about. 1923, Furman, mothering, although tears of joy stood in her eyes, she did not hug or kiss or make over her boys, such displays of feeling being permissible only in or over babies. Well, I'm sorry she couldn't. Maybe it was the time of the society, but I'm glad I made over Corey and Katie. I still make over Corey and Katie. I still want to fix them their favorite things to eat and hug their neck and kiss their cheeks. And so 1997 Montgomery collection, known to 9 consultants from the Smoky Mountains. He made over her good looks for an hour. So he was really going on about her good looks. And then number 2, let's see, Thompson touching home, to sign over. Don't really explain what that is, but sign over to someone else as a deed could be done. I don't know exactly what that means. And then in phrase, be someone made over, to resemble strongly. We say that, like I would say, I think Corey is just Miss Cindy made over. She just looks so much like her to me. Everybody sees something different, but that's what I see. So that one's, I've not thought about it, but that one's familiar too. Make polite is a verb phrase, to act courteously, to feign politeness too. So you're not really being polite, you're just pretending, probably in a sarcastic manner. He got tired of making polite of them, and then he went on down the road where his wife and driver was. Make prayer of a household, to have regular prayer. That's a good one. Make to, verb phrase with interposed object, to cause someone to. Let's see some examples. 1940, Hans Hawks Dunn, Enzor, made her to understand that he was through with her. 1965, Miller's Pigeon Roost. I always love to hear from Pigeon Roost. I appreciate your Christmas cards more so than you will ever know, as this makes me to know that at least there is over 100 who read my column. So Harvey Miller must have got people to send him some Christmas cards, or maybe they just did. 1978, Montgomery, White Pine. It made us all to know how close we all are, me and my mama and brother and 2 sisters. So now that I read that, all of those are familiar. It's what I would say. That would be very common usage. Make up is a verb phrase, to gather people, collect a sum of money, produce a foodstuff. Let's see, let's go all the way to the end of that one. 1989, Landry, Smoky Mountain Interviews. We never made up money in our church. We made up money for sick people, but not for pastors. So that would be, they made up money to donate to help that family that lost their home. That's familiar in my area. Also make it up. To decide, plan, agree, arrange to do something. Let's see, 1998, we made it up to slip off then. So they made it up to slip off. They were going to leave. That's common, but both of those, but especially that last one, seems like that would just be common everywhere. And that's it. We're at the end of the make. Isn't it fascinating, though, that there's so many different ones that Michael Montgomery and his assistant Jennifer, that they found that they wanted to document and put into the dictionary. So just fascinating to me. I love all of them. I love the ones even that I've never heard. Makes me wish I could go around talking like that and bring them all back. I can't. I try to. I always think I'm going to start saying that again and see if I can bring it back around, but I rarely remember to do that. We are people. Humans are a product of their environment, and people, you know, the things you hear. What I say is what I heard growing up with Granny and Pap, and school and work and places like that, because even then I don't say all the words, the old words that Granny and Pap said. Just like Corey and Katie certainly don't say all the ones that me and Matt use. And then you have those different, like Matt being 2 hours away where he grew up, he doesn't use all the ones I do, and I don't use all the ones he does. Now, after we've been married 30 years, we're kind of, he does say some things that I say that he used to make fun of me for or tease me about, and vice versa. I do the same for him. But so fascinating, and I'm so thankful for people like Michael Montgomery that took the time to document these things, and wonderful. I mean, he lists the, you know, the references where he got them. Those are book titles mostly that I'm reading out loud. Makes you want to go read all those books, but I can't imagine how he had to painstakingly go through all those. And a lot of them are older books, so it doesn't mean that they'd be readily available online where you could just Google, you know, and search for them. So I'm so thankful he did that. I'm also thankful, I have to show you the cover, that The Blind Pig and the Acorn, my blog, is used as reference in this. So that's like one of my greatest achievements, I think. I always have to share that. And I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for you that are interested in these old words and find them fascinating. I'm thankful for you when you leave comments and share that you had never heard of them, or why you think it's interesting, or that your parents, your grandparents, your aunt and uncle, yourself, whoever it is that you know, you've heard them use the words and phrases. I'm also always thankful when you drop by to help me celebrate Appalachia.